Hi, everyone. As folks are joining in, it's so awesome to have you here today. I'm going to get started with an introduction. My name is Teresa Sweetland. I'm the Executive Director of Forecast Public Art, and I'm also the publisher of Forward. Thank you so much for being here today. We are here for today's conversation, Public Art in Context, a part of our Forward discussion series. And I'm not, just a note, I'm not able to see the slides, so sharing of slides will just give us one moment to get our slides up. So just hold tight. Perfect. Thank you so much. So before I turn it over to our Public Art Now curator, Ebony, and the incredible guest artist today, I want to take a few minutes to introduce you to Forecast and to our latest issue of Forward. So next slide, please. If you haven't heard about Forecast, we're a nonprofit arts organization. We're based in St. Paul, Minnesota. We actually work around the country. And we were founded by artists about 47 years ago in 1978. And these were artists who wanted more opportunities and support and networks and resources to work in public and community practice. And today we're guided by a mission, which is to activate, inspire, and advocate for public art that advances justice, health, and human dignity. And you can see here we work with public and private partners around the country, with a lot of our work regionally in the Midwest, and we work with urban, rural, and tribal communities. Next slide, please. This is our awesome team. We work with this great team on all of our projects here and around the country. They are artists, they're planners, curators, designers, educators, and engagement facilitators, and more. They lead our work and make this all possible. Next slide, please. And our work falls into 5 main programs. So first, our unwavering support for artists. This is our creative studio. This program expands access for tools, resources, and funding for artists to work in public, create partnerships, and advance their public art careers, and also work in deep partnership with other fields and sectors. Next slide, please. In our planning and engagement work, we work with decision makers and stakeholders in communities around the country. We partner with artists and community members to create accessible, just, and relevant place-based efforts, including plans, policies, and public art. Next slide. Through our Learning Institute, we offer workshops, training, and other in-person and online learning opportunities. This helps artists and administrators and other decision makers in communities advance more equitable public art projects, policies, and practices, and learn more about how to do this in their local community. Next slide. In our Change Lab, we work with communities to pilot new ways of working within the field of public art to advance justice. And we fund fellowships to support more just practice in everything from racial equity in public art to climate, and we are just releasing a new fellow in civic engagement. Next slide. And we're here to chat today because of our Forward series. This is a discussion series and digital publication. We curate and create thought-provoking content through our online magazine, through local and national convenings, and other public events. And I just want to note, in everything that we do, we emphasize access for artists of color, Indigenous Native artists, and groups that have been traditionally excluded or silenced in public space. Next slide. We're here today as part of our new issue of Forward. This is our 8th issue. It's on civic health, and this issue features creative projects and partnerships from across the country that are building civic health infrastructure. And these are projects where artists are building civic knowledge and capacity, strengthening social cohesion, creating responsive institutions. And I have a quote here from our guest editor, Richard Young from Civic Lex, and he really hopes that this issue Forward will help those working on democracy see arts and culture and artists as part of an integral strategy to building a stronger and healthier democracy. And I just want to add how vital it is to support artists that speak out against injustice now more than ever as we face this threat to our democracy. Because when artists are silenced, so are the truths that they tell. So I'm honored to turn it over to Ebony Dumas, Forecast Director of Planning and Engagement and guest curator of this issue's Public Art Now series. Ebony.
Thank you, Teresa. Hello, everyone. So great to see you all. Really excited to have so many people here, and appreciate the excitement about this work that we're doing. Next slide, please. And so my name is Ebony Dumas, she, her pronouns, and I'm the Director of Planning and Engagement at Forecast Public Art. And earlier this year, my boss, Teresa, who you just heard from, asked if I was interested in writing an article and curating a selection of public artworks that inspire me. I immediately said yes, and within a matter of minutes, to be honest, I also knew the 4 artworks that I wanted to be featured in this article that highlights public art and civic engagement. And so I've been with Forecast for 1 year, and prior to that, I worked as an urban planner in the public and private sectors. However, before I received my master's in urban and regional planning at the University of New Orleans, shout out UNO, I worked in arts, culture, and nightlife sectors in Washington, D.C. for over a decade. I do encourage you to read the article if you haven't yet. But today, I'm excited to be in conversation with Ashley Teamer and Monique Verdin, 2 of the artists featured in the article. But first, I also want to quickly highlight 2 of the other artworks and artists featured in the article. Next slide, please. First is, let's see, I think the slide is what we were looking for. And so this is The Gilded Block by Curry Hackett. And through artificial intelligence programs, Curry often creates work that re-envisions public space to center Black people, Black culture, and Black aesthetics. And so in addition to the video that's playing now, some of his other artwork plays with public space and visualizing building facades with quilted textures. And so next slide, please. I think we're on slide 13. And we seem to be in a bit of a loop. Oh, there we go. So next is the Queen Rose Art House by multimedia artist Caleb Lindsay. Caleb's home in Tulsa, Oklahoma is a collection of murals, performance space, a gathering space, exhibition space, and a rotating artist in residence program. I recently moved back to my hometown of Tulsa and have been fortunate enough to gather in his backyard. I've watched a local band perform there, and I've also gone into his exhibition space to view his new project called The Real Housewives in Tulsa, which is the trailer playing on the right. Next slide. And now for our esteemed panelists today, I'm honored to soon turn it over to Monique Verdin and Ashley Teamer, who will introduce themselves and their artworks included in the article. And as we are engaging in this conversation, please feel free to use the Q&A function, and we will be able to incorporate some of your questions into the discussion later on. Thank you.
Thank you, Forecast, and thank you, Ebony, for the invitation to be here and to share about the work of the Nanih Bvlbancha. She's been teaching us a lot about time and place and the importance of having neutral grounds. And this is our neutral ground mound. I'm one of the stewards of the Nanih Bvlbancha. Nanih means mound or hill. Bvlbancha means place of babbling languages, place of many tongues, many languages, and is really the territory of the lower Mississippi River near and in the estuaries that meet the Gulf of Mexico. So Just want to kind of orient us in place in the history of mound building and the Mississippian builders present in the Mississippi River Delta, which is one of the largest river basins in the world. That's also losing land at one of the fastest rates on the planet. So the oversimplified statistic is that every 100 minutes, I think they're saying now, a football field is lost from our coast here. So we're really losing land sites. And J.R. Mehta is an incredible researcher who's been studying a lot of the mounds, and we learned a lot from him during the building of the Nanih Bvlbancha. And we're losing a number of these sites every year. And to the right, I have this practice of layering United States Geological Survey maps with images of place. So this is in the Yakni-Shido, the territory between the Atchafalaya and the Mississippi, which are the same river system, but and there's a 1,500-year-old mound there. And in the maps from the 30s, it says Indian mound. And then in the maps from, the early 2000s, it just simply recognizes it as a cemetery, which, the fascination around mounds, what are they? I always think of them as kind of a braille for the land and a language that we don't entirely understand, but the histories and the legends and the realities of them being connectors of sky and what is above and what is below. And just want to give a shout out to all the ancestors that made it possible, all the hands of community who made it possible for us to build the Nanih, and other collaborators and elders, but especially the other stewards, Dr. Tammy Greer, and also Ozone 504, Jenna May, and Ida Aronson, who have been helping to steward this. Here's just a map. New Orleans, also better known as Bvlbancha, is here in the crescent of the river. And so we'll just also want to recognize the crawfish, which are also mound builders and connectors of above and below. And so the crawfish has been an inspiration, and also the metaphor of having to in order to grow, you have to shed your shell. And the Nanih has definitely been making us grow and expand in different ways. We were commissioned essentially by Prospect New Orleans, and in 2023 started the process, and also in collaboration with Collocate created this map, which is incomplete and also just kind of lets you think of just the southeastern mounds. And of course, mounds go all the way up the Mississippi River watershed. And this was part of the Artists of Public Memory Commission. And just to kind of zoom into place, where the Lafitte, what is known as the Lafitte Greenway now, was once the Carondelet Canal, and in the late 1700s was a place that was dug by enslaved and incarcerated folks to create this kind of shortcut from this bayou system to the colonial city, and present day is a park. And this layering, just to reference this tradition of racquet, stickball, this game was played here in the Crescent City for a very long time, and up until not too long ago, and still to present day. And that was part of what we wanted to bring back, was these games. Stickball is also known as like war's little brother, and that was the first place that people would go to settle disputes. And some of these games lasted days and days and days. So here we are on the Lafitte Greenway. It's run by the New Orleans Recreation Department, and over a series of a number of weekends, we built out space for community to be with us. This clay came from the west part of the Mississippi River Delta, and is where the Red River was once running many years ago. So the Delta is fairly new. It's on geologically speaking. It's only a couple, like 8,000 to 5,000 years old. So baby land, disappearing again at the fastest rate, one of the fastest rates on the planet. This is our community events, building together, making love notes to the Nanih that was being born. Dr. Greer, Dr. Tammy Greer, who's one of the main collaborators, always liked to be like, this is a baby that's being born. The Homa Dictionary was buried in there. We had these days. Grodat Youth Farm were great collaborators. They brought us soil from their farm, and we would do these circle stomps led by one of our collaborators, Sisa, who's Quechua from Ecuador, and a tradition that her family and community have. Many, as I said, many hearts, many hands, many people who made this all possible. And the welcome of Indigenous people in Bvlbancha inside of the city of New Orleans is quite rare. So to invite Choctaw folks back into old territories in new ways, and also activating new ways. Here's stickball being played. Here's Sisa, our incredible collaborator, and also having these public gatherings. So every solstice, every equinox, we have these public invitations. Also activating it as a communication space. So we've been tinkering with these alternative technologies for autonomous communication systems, especially in times of emergency. So thinking of this as a site that can be activated in good times and in times of emergency when people need to connect. And it's really working. So Grodat Youth Farm, they led a public forum here where they were moving about the city, leading these conversations. We celebrated the 1-year birthday last solstice, winter solstice, and getting ready to celebrate the second year coming up. Everyone's invited, December 21st here in Bvlbancha. And this is what happens occasionally, really leaning into what our natural resources are. And storytelling and just gathering. I mean, I think that when a prospect was like, hey, there's this possibility for a commission on the green, not on the Greenway, just to say, but that was a long journey and another story that I don't maybe have time for right now with my presentation, because I think my time is up. But I do want to just reiterate that the Nanih will never be finished. It will always need love and care and attention. And the need for holding these neutral grounds in these times feels so incredibly important. And so this kind of return and these seasonal celebrations and these space for exchanges. We just had last weekend for fall, a plant seed and clothing swap out there, which is always, as I'm just keep saying, the Nanih has been teaching us a lot. And Southern Cultures just released this whole Katrina edition, which has a really beautiful interview with Dr. Greer, led by a young Homo woman, Mariah Hernandez Finch, which is really great. And I'll just end here. We have a website, nanihbvlbancha.net. I look forward to being in conversation. Thank you so much for the invitation again. And I'll pass it to Ashley.
Hello. Hi, everybody. My name is Ashley Teamer. Really excited to be here. Really happy to be connected with you all. And let me get my presentation into this screen. Okay, I think it's there. All right. So my sculpture, the Tambourine Cypress, is actually just down the Lafitte Greenway from Nanih Bvlbancha. And let me start a timer because I don't want to talk too long. Something I wanted to say is that my grandparents, my family on my mom's side is from Lake Providence, Louisiana, which is next to Poverty Point, which is one of the largest indigenous mound sites I think in the United States, one of them. And I just wanted to shout out that space as one of my inspiration points just for my art practice in general. A lot of my work deals with reimagining the landscape where we live more harmoniously with water through collage and also sculpture. And visiting that mound site in the year 2021 really changed my perspective in how we could live with water. And it just so happens also, my family is right next to that. Okay, so what you're looking at right now is an image of the Tambourine Cypress, and I'll just read a little paragraph that I wrote that explains, gives you, it's the plaque, the text that's on the plaque. So it says, Tambourine Cypress honors the natural landscape, music, and people that have inhabited the land surrounding Claiborne Avenue for thousands of years. This sculpture marks the site as a space for contemplation and celebration. It is the artist's hope, that one day the Claiborne Avenue Bridge will be removed and the descendants of the displaced will return. The glittering sounds of the tambourine branches are meant to connect us with the sounds of the Black masking Indians, the rhythms of gospel music, the accents of jazz, and the entire range of music that relies on the tambourine for an auditory twinkle. The notes played by the wind chimes are inspired by Hot Savoy, a composition by New Orleans flautist, scholar, and composer D'Antoinette Handy. And this sculpture was co-commissioned by Prospect New Orleans and also the New Orleans and the city, the Percent for Art program. Sorry, got tripped up on that. Okay, so when I was invited to be an artist in Prospect, and they asked if I wanted to create a public artwork, I knew immediately that it needed to be near Claiborne Avenue. Like I said, a lot of my work is about reimagining a landscape, and I thought that this spot connects everything that I love about my hometown, which is parading, second lines, music, masses of Black people gathering, celebration, and also erasure. That's an unfortunate part of being a part of a Black city, is that there's often erasure. And so what you're looking at is an image of Claiborne Avenue before 1960. And on the right is an image after 1960, when the highway was constructed through this very historic Black neighborhood. And like I mentioned, the sculpture is really an honor to all the people who used to live there. And so, like I was saying, I love second lines. And so when I was thinking about this sculpture, I knew that it had to be something that could be activated by the people who traverse Claiborne Avenue. So even though that there is a highway built through it, the traditions of parading have never stopped. So they happen under the bridge. Now, this particular second line that I'm showing y'all images of was not at Claiborne. I want my New Orleans people to know this is actually not a Claiborne second line, but I just wanted to show how much I love second lines and how often I am at them and photographing with my friends. We started an Instagram called Fire Fits New Orleans, where we would go to second lines and photograph the amazing style happening there. And so I knew that if I created a sculpture near the site of a second line, it needed to be something that could be activated by the second liners. So the questions I asked myself when thinking about this artwork was, can a sculpture be a protest? And can an instrument also be a resting place? So how could I create something that did all those things? I didn't know when I started this, but that on the journey of talking to everyone around my community, that is what ultimately created the vision. And so I had to tap into everything I know about being from New Orleans, which is if you want to get anything done, you have to talk to people in person. That's the only way you're going to figure it out. You can't email, you cannot even call, you can't even text. If you want to learn about something, you have to get your feet on the ground and go walk around and talk to people. So that is how I conceived of this artwork. On the inside of the sculpture, it has two sayings in Louisiana Creole. This one says, water always flows to the river. And on the other side, which you can see on the other side, which is in there, it says, tell me who you love and I'll tell you who you are. And I was connected with these phrases by a linguist named Cliff St. Laurent, who introduced me to a book of Creole proverbs. These two proverbs specifically came from Louisiana. So every element of this sculpture be a monument to and a protest of the bridge, really trying to reference and connect with all the people who inhabited this neighborhood before the bridge was constructed. And even in the early days of the city, when indigenous Creole and Black people lived on the very edges of the original city, which was the French Quarter. All right, so the wind chimes. So I wanted this to be an instrument that could be activated, whether someone was playing or not. So these wind chimes are activated by the wind, and these tambourines, you can actually beat on them and it'll play music. And I'll just kind of quickly say that when I was trying to conceive of the sculpture, like I said, I knew I had those questions in my mind. How can this be a protest? How can it be a monument? How can it be an instrument? How can it be a resting place? And of course, when you parry these questions in your mind and you have an active, like, I'm going to find these answers in my community, the answers come to you. So I went to this film screening at the New Orleans Museum of Art about Black masking Indians in the 1970s. And that's when I realized the instrument that it would embody would be a tambourine. I also wanted to create accompanying collages that imagined a future in which the trees are returned to Claiborne. So these are some imagined future landscapes where folks are gathered under the Claiborne Bridge, but instead of a bridge, it's a tree. And so these are some of the collages that accompanied the work. We've been talking about location. So I knew that the sculpture would then be on the Lafitte. Could it connect to, well, one, it was already connected to Nanih Bvlbancha. And I was like, okay, how can we create a pathway through the Lafitte Greenway and connect to Congo Square? Because that is a path maybe leading us through and away from the bridge, which I'm sure there's some questions about of the bridge I can get into a little bit later. And then these are just some images of my process. So I'm a collage artist, so I used collage to imagine what the sculpture would look like. I did a process of drawing and working with paper. This is a close-up of the collage. This is the book that I got the text, the sayings out of from Cliff St. Laurent. And then finding the answers in my community. So I knew that to create the sculpture, I would need to connect with the history of Claiborne Avenue, the environmental history of Claiborne Avenue, which we know to be the ground below the bridge is very toxic, and then also the history of the tambourine itself. So on the journey of connecting with those different elements, I was connected with the tambourine lady, who's Rosalie Washington, and my friend Gladney, and speaking with them helped me find the form of the sculpture and the angle. I learned to play the tambourine, and I do play the tambourine. And through the process of creating and connecting with these different organizations like the Claiborne Avenue History Project, Dr. Adrienne and Amy Stelly, different people working on the environmental, social elements of Claiborne Avenue, we were able to come together to create a panel where we spoke about the history of the tambourine, which then ultimately turned into us playing the tambourine, which I was glad that I practiced because we were all playing the tambourine together at the opening weekend of Prospect. And then I was able to do a follow-up event on Inauguration Day, AKA Martin Luther King Day, AKA the coldest day of New Orleans, the year, and called Calling All Tambourines, where I invited folks to bring instruments to play as we had some songs to remember and words of encouragement for Martin Luther King Day. All right, I'm gonna stop there because I think I've already gone long enough.
Well, thank you both to Monique and Ashley. I really loved hearing more about your artworks and your process. And if nothing else, this has satisfied my personal curiosity in like all the times that I wanted to just ask y'all so many like detailed questions about your work. But let's like now get into some group conversation. And you both touched on this a little bit. But like today we're focusing on the context, particularly of the built environment and how that intersects with public art, particularly in your public artworks. And so what I'm wondering is if you could, both of you, touch a little bit on your creative process and how it intersects and interacts with the community context. And so you mentioned the Lafitte Greenway, and that greenway is connecting multiple neighborhoods, and it's a rather new development. Because I remember it was still being like shovels were in the ground when I was in grad school there. And so there's, along that greenway, there have been demographic shifts. There's been the neighborhoods have changed, the cultural history, present and future. There's been a lot of urban planning and urban design along that area. And I just wonder, how did your creative process, whether it was design choices, I know Ashley, you mentioned like even the angle of the tambourine was something that you learned in the process, but when like zooming out a little bit on the neighborhood and the built environment, how did that intersect with your creative process? Whoever wants to go first.
I can speak on that a little bit. I was mentioning that I interviewed a lot of different people to help figure out what the sculpture was going to be and how it could support the work already being done on Claiborne. So I spoke with Amy Stelly, who is an artist and activist educator. And something we talked about was the opportunity that with the sculpture being my sculpture's at the edge of the Greenway, going towards like the very edge of it, where it's not quite developed, if you will. She said we talked a lot about that being an opportunity to create a pathway. And directly under the bridge, there are high levels of lead. So when people are parading under there, dripping on you is liquid from the highway. And we talked a lot about this being a gathering place, a historic gathering place, but that perhaps this greenway leading away from there and towards Congo Square would offer a possibility of transformation and actually to exit the toxic area, even though our ultimate goal, at least for me and for her, is that the highway is removed. But thinking about that, especially with the intention of angling the sculpture so that that pathway could be created. And hopefully inspiring, and some folks in the green were like, oh, we could keep going with this greenway. And it's like, how can we actually use this sculpture as a way to extend the greenway into a very chaotic intersection and make that maybe a place for more pedestrian activity?
Yeah, I think that, the whole process of like, where do we go? Where do we, the invitation to do public art, but not the like actual location being defined, and how that was like an opportunity and also an incredible challenge. And I think that for the stewards, there was definitely this, like, how do we not get pushed to the back swamps? Because that was what was becoming like a reality. And it took like a year of us negotiating with entities. And I think that like, I never had on my list, like make a public art monument. I was like, not, and then suddenly we're in the process. And I think that, yeah, a lot lessons learned. But being closer to activity, to being near the playground, near the football field, in this like active space where, folks are playing soccer there every afternoon and a place of activity. So that also has been an opportunity and a challenge in that this kind of maintenance and repair, which is the long-term reality of the Nanih, and then like trying to create a culture of care because it's not just like built and done. And then also like a culture of activating it, you know, like knowing that it's there and it's for everybody. Like it's not ours, it belongs to us all, you know, like this is a public space that we should be able to be at. And then I think just one other thought is that some of the pushback of where our site is, well, one of the histories of the place is that it's right at the on Lafitte Avenue, and on the other side of the street is where the Lafitte housing development was, and how public housing and other mixed income housing is, which has its own weird, wild, completely disgusting displacement post, you know, we've been in this like post Katrina world of like looking back at all of these things, right? But also was a wild space that was a garden space that people were using. So I think that this like Sprout, which is right down the way, they're putting in a community garden coming up soon. So these like kind of interconnected public spaces is really exciting to think about. But that the vision for the Greenway is for it to be a blue way, because the like this return to it being a place where water is able to exit the city, right? And so they were like, oh, well, we don't know if you should be there because of internet. And we were like, well, we want to understand that, and we want to be part of that long-term plan, and also want to bring in more biodiversity to support this transition that is on the future horizon. So that's still though a, you know, I mean, we're in this like process of partners and figuring out the sustainability for it long term.
I feel like, Monique, you brought up the Blue Way, and Teamer, you were kind of like, whoa. So that makes me wonder, like, your pieces, for anyone who has not had the pleasure to walk along the Greenway and visit both pieces, as I have recently. And so, like, how did y'all like connect with each other? How did you see this, mound, and then go back to your studio and back to your community conversations? Monique, as you all like have the mound as a regular gathering space, as a community space, like how do you see the mound in the Nanih in connection to Tambourine Cypress in any way? And so, these are two amazing works that are so close to each other, and I'm really interested how y'all maybe play it off each other or feed each other.
Well, I can say that I kind of watched the mound come alive over the time that I was a part of the Prospect project. Wasn't invited to Prospect until November of 2023. So I had exactly less than a year to conceive of and design this tree. And the mound was already underway. So that actually, just kind of talking about the relationship, because the mound was already underway, they were kind of like, oh yeah, you can put a tree over there. They were, I mean, I don't know if it was because of, but there was already this, energy flowing towards the river. So I kind of just built off of that energy, and I just would always check on it whenever I was in New Orleans to do any of the work on this. And I saw, at least for me, I was like, oh, this is perfect, because there's really like, this is a conversation that it's literally here, it's happening. And, and if anything, I'm inspired by it. I'm not fully living in New Orleans right now, so I can't activate my tree as much as I'd like to, but I am planning a tambourine, calling all tambourines too. So.
I feel like there are these hidden gems on the Greenway that are disconnected. And I also, just in reflecting on Prospect in New Orleans and P6, I feel like there could have been maybe more support in like having this conversation on the Greenway about this place, about the histories, and about the current realities.
I'm sorry, really quickly, no one's really explained Prospect. or P6. So what is Prospect?
Prospect was a biennale and then became a triennale at a certain point, but has been since Hurricane Katrina, like the contemporary art festival of the city, I would say. And they've sunset or are sunsetting like really soon. So their last the sixth edition was what Ashley was speaking about, just having a year, which is insane to think. Like, that is just, that's a lot. So yeah. And it would be like a number of different, exhibitions all over the city, international artists and local artists. But I think that just to say, the Artist of Public Memory Commission was not part of the Biennale or Triennale. It was going to be like its own thing, I think, was it would have a series, but it was all, and the Nanih was one of three of the Artists of Public Memory Commission. So there's really brilliant installation that Kayi Lumba Barrow had, the Abolitionist Playground, that was on Norman C. Francis. And then Keith Calhoun and Chandra McCormick built this incredible house, a shotgun house of images that had been taken over the last 40 years in their community in the lower Ninth Ward. Also really just like such a incredible holding of space, that the piece was doing this like really beautiful work. But both of those projects were short-term projects. Ours was the only one that was.
And I visited both of those just on my journey of trying to conceive of what this sculpture could be.
I think I love the play and invitation and other sensory experience that your sculpture is offering the city. Thank you for making it. And I hope that we can, like, I don't know, we're thinking,
but I think that's, yeah.
Like, can we like in our signage be like, go this,
yeah, I think there's an opportunity. I think that's an opportunity. And I feel like even though we are both supported by this triennial situation, I think that what I love about the artists who are from New Orleans who participate is that it's like, okay, we can kind of, we're like, okay, we got it now. And we, now that we've been connected, we can take it from here.
I'm going to take a little credit for that. Doing work here.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Because I mean, it really was me. When I was there at the end of last year, beginning of this year, walking from the mound to the tree and vice versa, and it was just a really engaging experience. Right, like I'm seeing the native plants along the way that are labeled. I'm seeing the like name tags essentially for the mature trees that have been there for over 100 years, and I'm seeing like all of this just made so much sense, and it was just like really intelligent to have these two pieces so close to each other and activate along that stretch of the Greenway where there's a basketball court and a community center, and so it just blew my mind, and I'm thrilled that you all said yes to coming here today, so thank you for that. I do want to get into one of the audience questions. And so, hey, audience, if you have other questions, feel free to put them in the Q&A. We will get to them, I promise. So Monique, you had brought up, maintenance and care for the Nanih. And I think a lot of people here, might be wondering about the longer term maintenance and care and how you both navigate that. Is it something that you navigated with the city? Is it something that maybe more so in your case, Monique, that you and the stewards have decided you will be doing X number of maintenance and care projects over the certain number of times. So yeah, could you talk about that?
Um, it's a little bit of a gray area, to be really honest, right now. In that with Prospect sunsetting, we have to find a new fiscal sponsor, and there comes all of these other kinds of agreements with the city. So technically, our agreement is with NORD, the New Orleans Recreation Department. Our CEA is with them, and that's through the city of New Orleans. And so we're up against a new mayor's election coming up soon. And I guess I was naive to think that, you know, we would build a mound and it wouldn't be a political situation. But, you know, it's like it's not that it is that political, but it also is like, you know, whose space, how do we care for it? How do we make sure that like it's in relationship with all of the other planning on the Greenway? And so there is an organization that is Lafitte Greenway Partners, formerly known as Friends of Lafitte Greenway, who help to manage the Greenway. So we're in conversation, you know, with all of these entities right now and trying to figure out what this transition is. But I think that, you know, to Ashley's point, like, when it comes down to it, it's going to be in who are the individuals and what is the committed community that is going to be able to sustain this. Because we can have all the money and we can have all the political allies and we can have all the things and not have have like a, you know, a space that we all need, you know? So I think that we're learning. And as again, just Dr. Tammy Greer reminds, she has this medicine wheel garden that's up in the University of Southern Mississippi in Hattiesburg that's getting ready to celebrate its 20th birthday. And she's like, it's a baby. It's like got diaper rash right now. And we're just going to have to like keep tending to it so that it can, you know, once it can stabilize and care for itself. So I'm just following the, I do what I, you know, do what I can. I'm kind of like the lunch lady. I bring snacks to the party and just hoping that everything's gonna work out because it is such an important gathering site. It has become such an important gathering site.
And I think what you're touching on too is like public art is alive. Like it's not, and you know, it's even more so in a very unstable tropical environment. But I think that's something that I learned. This is my, I've done other public artworks, but they have been more billboards, banners style or performance, you know, temporary. And so public artwork, no matter what material it's made out of, it is a living, breathing thing. And at least for the logistics of my work, it is managed by, it was co-commissioned by the Percent for Art, which is a state entity, which is facilitated by Arts New Orleans. And so anything that I'm needing to do with regards to the sculpture would be through that entity. Now that and you know, whenever I go to the sculpture, I always see something somebody wrote on it. You know, there's a shoe there. A little the first day it was installed, there was pennies at the foundation. So I really delight at all the different ways that people make their mark or their presence known at the sculpture. Like a tree, it just is going to take on whatever the environment places upon it. Um, and I kind of like have been in a process of just seeing what happens and learning from that, whatever it may be, what the people will do. Because ultimately, I think something you mentioned too, Monique, was like a culture of care around it. And I know that when we were installing it, people were passing by and asking, hey, what is this? And I made a bunch of free posters that explained the sculpture. And I was just, whoever came by, it was curious, I handed posters out just to kind of like, you know, create that feeling of this is for everyone, this is for you. By the way, I'm the artist. By the way, here's some free art.
Awesome. I'm wondering, do you have any questions for each other? We have another question in the chat, and so maybe we can get to that question first. But if the two of you might have questions for each other, you know, that could be really great to hear from you. And so we have this question from Simone. As a social practice artist from Mississippi and working closely with folks in Phillips County, Arkansas, also along the Delta, in the Delta, with our cultural node deeply interested in the mounds in Louisiana, this is feeling very full circle and exciting. Have either of you considered expanding this work up the Delta? Inquiring minds want to know.
Hmm.
Dr. Tony Greer wants to build an effigy mound in Hattiesburg. And yeah, I think that the Gulf South Open School, which is a network that I'm
Mhm.
deeply connected to, which is connected to the Mississippi River Open School, has been an interesting space to think about, you know, for mounds and connections and hubs and information exchanges and, yeah, site-specific experiential learning spaces. I'm definitely curious about how, but I don't know. Right now, I just want to tend to my like garden and kind of like, you know, I'm like, yeah, I'm in my hermit mode. I'm just home. So I don't know how much energy I have right now to go too far away, but I am interested in how we connect.
I am too. I think while in the process of making the sculpture, as I mentioned, in a very short timeline, I think something that I kind of established for myself for any future public sculptures would be to create something that, in addition to being an instrument and a resting place, is also a habitat or some kind of like environmental supporter specifically. So I think that if another instrumental, if something else I created was a protest, an instrument, a resting place, and a habitat, or something that is supporting the existing environment, that is what would draw me to create another sculpture. But of course, in response to what's happening in that location. Now, I am from Lake Providence, partially. My mom and my grandparents are from Lake Providence, Louisiana, and I really haven't thought of making a sculpture there. But yeah, everything is based on the invitation, the people, the time, and the need, but open to it.
Keep it open. Yeah, yeah. Don't close it off. Maybe Monique will get out of her house one day, you know, but hey.
No, I was going to invite Ashley. You're invited too, Ebony, to come over to the prairie because I'm wanting to experiment with this clay that we have here, in like how to build things that have this like multi-species benefit. So maybe that's a experiment some future time. I'm open to it though. I mean, I feel like, you know, it's like when you think about art, like whether it's a documentary or building a mound, like it takes so much time, energy, money, and like I've been thinking a lot about different kinds of currency and like what does that mean for art, and also like, you know, my art practice of like how I just need to be more like I need to recognize more like what I'm extracting to make, you know, to whatever whatever it is that was compelling me to like be a weirdo and like, you know, do whatever it is that I'm doing at the time. The Nanih just came, you know, as like a, yeah, it's just like, oh, this is what we're doing now. I don't want, you know, I know some Indian people who want to build a mound. They've been saying that for a long time. Okay, now we have an opportunity. Go.
Yeah, I think so too. Like it just happened, and you don't realize how much energy and how every element of your being is being honed to create artwork at this scale. It is quite the lesson, I think.
Okay, so we have just a couple minutes left. Do either of you have questions for each other?
Oh, I forgot to think about that.
I was just thinking that it would be interesting to, I don't know, I'm even like, is there a little zine or a publication or something that could connect the two sites? Like, oh, if you're at the Nanih, you should go. It's just a little walk, and these are the connections. And I'm just, just thinking about how the interstate separates us and like what that means.
Hmm.
How the sites could connect us is, yeah, I'd love to explore that more.
I mean, I'm already seeing something, that folds out into a horizontal,
Mhm.
little
Yeah.
something.
Damn.
Sounds like we don't have questions, but we got bubbling ideas.
Yeah, okay. You hear it first, good people. You hear it first. And so in a moment, I do want to turn it back over to wrap it up with our forecast executive director. But I want to say a heartfelt thank you, Ashley and Monique. I really appreciate you answering this call for, random interview and panel discussion. Thanks for like listening to me talk randomly about this article for the past like year, telling you like I promise it's gonna happen and I promise it's gonna come out. So I really appreciate both of you and thank you for taking the time to present today and being in discussion with each other. And then I wanted to say thank you to everyone who's shown up. It's been really great to see so many people express interest in these two artists and their work and in forecast and in this article. And so, yeah, pass it on to someone else, pass it on to a friend, and stay in touch. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Amazing conversation. I wish it could continue. We have many more conversations like this that you can be a part of. I hope you follow us and subscribe to our newsletter and stay in touch with Forecast. We love to hear from you. We love to hear your ideas and potential partnerships and collaborations where you're working. And I also just want to encourage you, we are a nonprofit organization. Doing this work takes support from individuals, foundations, and others who believe in this mission and believe in the voices of artists, especially during this time. So if you're compelled to donate, please do. There's a donate button on our website. And thank you so much for being here and enjoy the rest of your day.